Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Sam's Financial Corner. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about the Mainvest shutdown and where we currently are in the process. So let me read this really quickly and then we'll get right into it. Due to our banking partner Synapse's Chapter 11 bankruptcy proceedings, all payments processing on Mainvest is currently unavailable, including withdrawals from bank linkage. Help learn more here. We will be notifying all users via email as updates become available. For more information, refer to the Investor Support Hub or the Business Support Hub. Note that all portfolio information will be emailed to investors no later than June 12th, 2024, and repayment information will be provided to issuers no later than that same date as well. Um, so, what I wanted to do is just kind of talk about where we are in the process and what's been going on. And this leads me to this article, which I'm going to basically link this in the description so that you can have it so you can read at your own leisure. Don't worry, it's not a long read, but I do think that if you are an investor with Mainvest and utilize Mainvest to invest in startups, then it's definitely worth the read. I encourage you to read it. I'll put the link in there, but I'm basically going to paraphrase it, what's going on and what they're talking about, and then I'm just going to give you my advice at the end. So, a U.S. trustee wants troubled fintech Synapse to be liquidated via Chapter 7 bankruptcy, cites gross mismanagement. This was an article written by Marianne Azevedo. I'm sorry if I pronounced her name incorrectly, on May 16th. And basically, what they're talking about here is, and what I focus on is fintech companies. There are a lot of fintech companies out there, and I've mentioned some. I encourage you to look on videos that I've done. WeFunder is a fintech company that allows you to invest in startups that connects you. TribeVest, which I use for my family's investment group, is a fintech company. These financial tech companies are intermediaries that bring basically, in a nutshell, connect you to banks. So, for example, let me use Chime. Chime is a perfect example of a fintech company that connects you to a bank. With Chime, they're the intermediary. They're the one that hosts your data. You communicate with them when you have issues, the account number, routing number, but where your money actually resides is in a bank. And the emergence of these fintech companies has basically came about when a lot of companies realized that, especially within the banking and tech world, is that there were people who either could not get access to a bank account and were denied, or in the investment world, what they realized is that there were billions, dare I say, even trillions of dollars that was not being invested because these large amounts. There are a lot of companies, a lot of venture tech companies, venture capitalist firms, rather, who have been investing in startups for years, but the average person does not have access to them. And what they've noticed is by creating these platforms like WeFunder, like Start Engine, or in the banking sector, we'll just use Chime, for example. What they realized is that there were billions of dollars that was not being utilized. And so you see the emergence of these fintech companies, like for example, Rush Card, other type of cards, etc., where these companies act as an intermediary. Your money is held with the bank, but they're the intermediary, and they realize in this way, this is how they've been able to drum a business, get a lot more money into bank and banking systems. This helps facilitate loans, etc. And they realize a lot of money was being left on the table. And so these fintech companies, and I want to preface that they're financial tech companies that are truly an intermediary. And that's where I think that as fintech companies, as technology keeps progressing, I do hope that there are more laws and things in place so that they can be better regulated. But at the end of the day, a fintech company is a company like any other company, and companies fail. And we're kind of seeing that with Synapse. So basically, what has happened is Synapse has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And Chapter 11 bankruptcy is a form of bankruptcy that a business can go into where they reorganize their debt structure, but they can still keep operating as an ongoing concern. And you may hear that in business, the term ongoing concern, and that just basically means the company can still operate while they still restructure. Now, this article basically states that Synapse has grossly mismanaged funds, and instead of trying to restructure and continue, they feel that they should go for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And Chapter 7 bankruptcy is basically that they should liquidate their assets and not be an ongoing concern. Now, I'll scroll through a little bit of the article. Again, I'm not going to read all of it, I'm just going to give you some basic highlights. But what I think has happened, because when Mainvest initially talked about how they were closing, there were external and internal things. This article gives you a little bit more insight into the external issues. So there's Evolve Bank that actually holds the accounts, and then there's Synapse that provides the platform for transactions. And basically, what happened is that Synapse disabled access to Evolve Bank and Trust to utilize their platform for deposits, etc., for their for the dashboard management. And because they disabled it, basically didn't say what's going on, Evolve Bank decided to shut down accounts. And this is why, as a Mainvest investor, you weren't able to process transactions, you weren't able to make withdrawals, because once Evolve was like, well, we don't have access to this dashboard, what's going on? It seems like, in my opinion, it isn't explicitly stated, but it looks like Synapse just froze it, didn't give a reason why. Evolve was like, nope, let's just shut things down. We're going to freeze accounts. We want to minimize our liability, but as well as our customers. Now, it looks like on May 9th, TechCrunch reported that TabaPay was going to pay 9.7 million dollars to purchase, Synapse assets, but that kind of fell apart. And I think Synapse probably was like, okay, well, we shut this down. This company will come in, they'll pay, they'll buy us, acquire us. Everything should be fine. We'll turn over things to them. And again, that didn't happen. Um, so there's just that. And then I'll just read this part where Evolve alleged that it was not involved in the sale because there was some allegations that they were, and that they were not to blame. Mercury also claimed that Synapse's allegations of being owed money had no merit. So there was that played a part in this. On May 13th, the Evolve Bank and Trust filed a motion for an order to restoring access to Synapse's dashboard system after alleging it had been denied access to the startup's computer systems and had been forced to freeze end users' accounts. So again, when Synapse and they made the Evolve, when they made the allegation they couldn't access it, they froze accounts, like I stated earlier, and of course that caused a disruption. And I think that is what signaled Mainvest, and Mainvest has not really went into in depth as to internally why they've decided to shut down. But if that information is provided, I definitely will share it with you. Um, and there was one thing that I also wanted to mention, and this is why I kind of agree with the article about the company should be filing Chapter 7 versus Chapter 11. So Synapse admitted that it had no more cash or approval to use any cash after Friday, May 17th. We all know that in business, cash reigns supreme, and solvency is something that's very important. And when a company becomes insolvent and that is basically their inability to continue as an ongoing concern due to cash and their debts and all of those things without having cash flow and being able to pay bills, payroll, etc. I agree that the company should have filed for Chapter 7 and liquidated assets versus filing for Chapter 11 and to reorg if the company, since the company admitted that it had no more cash or approval. And if you have no more cash or approval, and that approval can mean credit as well, or you've exceeded, you're in a place where you can no longer pay your debts and everything and continue as an ongoing concern as an entity should, then for me, I totally agree they should be filing for Chapter 7. They should liquidate and just let it go versus trying to do a restructuring where they may not be an ability, or not an ability, but not be in a place where they have the ability to continue as an ongoing concern. Lastly, the one thing that I want to round this video out with is that as fintech companies emerge and we as the smaller or angel investor, what individual investor, whatever term you want to use, or for those of you who have had issues getting a traditional bank account for any reasons and you're utilizing these fintech companies, I want you to be aware that this is a new market. And when there's a new market, there are a lot of new players, there's a lot of emergence. And unfortunately, there are a lot of companies that can go under and have issues. On the banking side, what I want to stress and emphasize is, and I know this may sound bad to kind of say, but unless the company has a proven track record and doesn't have a lot of issues, I think it's okay to continue to use them. But if you have a company that has issues with customers, complaints of deposits, tax returns being held, any other type of issues, my advice is if you still wish to use them, that's fine. But I say use them as like a secondary account. Don't use them as a primary because if something happens, you don't want your account froze. You don't want to be without your money. And you know, we need to be able to have access to our money now more than ever, especially in this environment and inflation. On the business side, I still say execute or have an air of caution. Just pay attention to what's going on. Um, Kind of look at what's happening within the industry. Keep an eye open, keep an ear open, and just kind of be as vigilant as possible. I'm not saying that fintech companies are bad. Don't trust them, but when you have a new market out here that is still emerging and formulating, just know that there's going to be some change. My heart goes out to every investor who has utilized the Mainvest platform because, you know, basically what the articles also stated too that we haven't received any word that accounts have been unfrozen. And so, like I said in my last video as well, I would suggest if you're going to utilize these platforms, which I'm not saying don't, but I would say I think it would be best not to hold a lot of money in these accounts because of a situation like this. Because when something happens, you want to be able to access your money. And because it's a fintech company, you want to look to Mainvest. But Mainvest isn't technically the holder of the assets, which is your funds, it's another entity. So just be mindful of that. Play close attention. Of course, I'm going to keep you updated and let you know what's going on. Like I said before, I'm going to definitely leave a link to this article. And especially if you invest in Mainvest, it is worth a read. I basically highlighted all the points, and I hope this is helpful. Again, I'll keep you updated as you know time progresses. And but I want to say also too, don't lose hope. Don't become afraid. Don't be like, no, I'm not going to do this. Just know that this sometimes happens, and companies We always praise companies when they grow and make a lot of money, but we have to also know that as investors, that companies can close down and it can have a negative impact on us as investors. So we have to understand that on this investment journey that we're truly along for the ride. And again, just be cautious, pay attention, and take time out to read and to know what's going on, or watch my videos because I'm here to help. So thank you all for watching. Again, take care, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye.